evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this smile, and I hope that you will continue smiling. And how we can have smile as a tool that we can overcome all the difficulties that we may encounter. Now, today we will talk about balance, psychological balance during a crisis. I have a formula because we can't see or psychological issues are intangible. We can't see them. We can't touch them. What is intangible? What we can't see in order to follow what we can see. Let's talk about balance first. And what are crises? What is a crisis? And is each crisis can be dealt with as a crisis? And is the crisis the same for all people? Is the crisis for you the same as for me and other people? How can we deal with crisis? What's the difference between the problem and the crisis and the disaster and the catastrophe? What are the differences between disaster, crisis, catastrophe? And how can you prevent this, and how we can deal, and how we can be psychologically in balance, and how we can transfer a crisis to a quantum leap of positivity and well-being. I'm talking to you now, standing. As long as I'm stand still, everybody can see me, I am balanced. But if I bend forward, then what's happening now? From right to left, I am oscillating, I'm unbalanced. So if you are unbalanced, you are going right and left. If something happened and I was walking, raise your left leg that you are not used to using. Try to practice right hand and left hand and bend right. Try skills. The more you can control your bending, this means you have balance, you have psychological balance. If you go back quickly and you balance, measure your balance by bending forward and backward. Go right, go left, concentrate, go to the right. This balance is sometimes not focused. You have to raise your hand to make balance. So we use tools, legs and hands, for getting balance in order to be balanced. Similarly with the left hand and left leg, as you can see the body has balance. Also psychology, or the spirit, the soul has balance. We should care about the balance of the soul. Therefore, I need to balance myself all the time. The more balanced I am, the more physical and psychological balance go hand in hand. We say always that you are a prisoner of your feelings and emotions. If you are balanced, this means you are enjoying, you are relaxed, you are comfortable, you are peaceful. It is dominant. Peace is the flavor of balance. Peace is the taste and flavor of balance. Therefore, if you bend more to a certain direction, there are feelings called sadness. These psychological things are going back to the past. This means more sadness if you think of the past. And then it becomes pain, torture, and it causes perseverance. But if you look into the future, if you think of the future, what can you feel? It's opposite of, it will be fear. Fear means fear first, worries, tension, panic, more panic. Imagine this. So if you have panic, fear, what happens is that causes loss of balance when there is any problem or crisis that you encounter. In order to be psychologically balanced, I have to be in the middle between fear and panic. You have to maintain a balance between sadness and fear. This means you have a balance which is psychological. you have peaceful and you have peace of mind, and then you will be able to deal with all issues. And there are rules which I will mention now. How to benefit from this lecture in the future, and hopefully, and you will believe and you will learn a lot from this lecture. Now, there is a rule I would like to show you and mention it to you. I will give you a tangible example. Take a glass full of water. A glass of water. Fill it with half water. Then use 7 or 4 rice seeds, white rice seeds. Then you put 5 peas. So 4, 3. Then we can put 6 or 7 lentils seeds, yellow or black or black pepper. 4 or 5 seeds of black pepper. 3, 4, 5. Things that can be measured, which can be counted. Okay. Therefore, focus please. We put them in the glass. We stir the glass, the water. Now we are stirring. Can you count them? Can you count the 3 rice pieces? No, you won't. What about how many peas? How many pepper seeds? You will not be able to do that. It's impossible. While you are moving, you can't do that. It's really difficult. Unless the water is still water. So your psychology is the same. You will not be able to comprehend peace of mind and solution in every difficulty unless you are settled or balanced. Your psychological peace of mind and balance is a means. It's not an objective. Psychological balance is a tool. You're not waiting to solve the problem to be balanced. I can't wait till the disaster goes to be balanced. I have to be balanced psychologically now in order to be able to deal with this situation or dilemma or catastrophe or crisis. Therefore, what is a problem? What is a catastrophe? What is a disaster? The problem is an obstacle. Could be simple or more difficult. We face it everywhere. While we are developing and progressing, everybody will go through a problem. And the problem is because of the rules and laws of life. In order to go ahead with development, to go forward to development. Another problem is, it's like when one day you are walking, you are learning to walk to get balance. Of course. This balance starts with a child trying to walk. Allah Almighty has bestowed us and taught us you will not be able to walk unless you are balanced. Balance first, then go forward. Yes. Therefore, when we learn to walk and to go ahead and to proceed, there are obstacles, difficulties, barriers. I have to maintain my balance to learn in order to overcome and to learn a skill and a competency to go forward ahead. Therefore, the disaster that we have is a big issue. Therefore, we need to learn about this and to overcome the problem. The catastrophe is a big issue. We need to overcome the catastrophes which are not ordinary. For example, there are disasters, big disasters in the world, such as Corona. Is Corona a crisis or a catastrophe? It's a catastrophe. It leads to a crisis. Therefore, What happens after a disaster is a catastrophe or accumulation of problems that we encounter. You need to deal well with the crisis or the problem. Otherwise, if you don't solve a problem, you will have a crisis. It's the effect that comes on you during your life as a result of the disaster or a crisis or problem that you have. If you have a problem, simple problem in habits, a bad habit, for example, you feel lazy, and your company sometimes, some customers try to complain about you, and they object. This is a problem now. If you don't pay attention to this problem, it will accumulate, it will escalate, and there will be escalation of problem. And the customer will go to somewhere else. So all of a sudden, because of your bad negative habits, then you will cause a disaster. Accumulation or escalation of problems become crisis or disaster. And this will lead to loss of the company and loss of your status as an employee or your status in the environment. This is the impact of the escalation or accumulation of problems that you encounter. The disaster also is usually has impact on many people, more people, such as Corona, pandemic, and Russia and Ukraine, for example, as a disaster, or a world disaster in money. This is a disaster. The important issue is that if right from the very beginning you have a skill of dealing and coping with problems, and you have steps that we will talk about later, then the first issue is once it becomes a crisis, you will not be affected if you take the steps that we will talk about later. Before we start talking about the steps, what are the messages that we get? First, problems. Then we have to know what is the crisis, what is the problem, what are the messages of problems and crisis. There are messages. The messages of a crisis are very big. There is a rule that I would like to show you. This rule I want you to remember all the time. When you deal with any problem, crisis, or catastrophe or disaster, you need this rule or formula. You, the rule of you. You is the rule. What is the rule of you? It's Y-O-U in English. In Arabic, Alif Nun Ta. So in English, it's Y-O-U. In Arabic, Alif Nun Ta. So if any letter is mixed to another letter, will result in something different. So anta, you, Y-O-U, Alif Nun Ta. If we take the N or the U of you, one U is Y-O-U is the result. The result is important, what we live. It's now, the present time where we live. The result is noon in Arabic. It's based on alif and ta in Arabic. Alif is the crisis or azma. T or ta. So the result that I will get should be related to the problem or the disaster. It is related. Dealing with the result is very important. T is dealing, how to deal with the problem. T is how to develop with the problem. Ta or T is your learning and understanding. T or ta is calming of your emotions, your control, your feelings, your emotions. So you have to balance yourself. In Arabic, ta, or it means reaching the result, to be or to have a destination. You know where you are going. You have to think of your destination. But when you have a problem, some people lose their destination. They don't know where they are going. And they don't know how to start. And they want to get rid of the problem. I will say it again. Some people forget their destination, where he is going, what he is going to do. He just wants to get rid of. So you should think of your balance. So the rule is called anta in Arabic. We should focus on Aleph is the problem that happened, which you have to overcome. And the result also, what you are going to do and how you behave in the problem. And we are going to deal with the crisis and problems. Now let's talk about problems or messages to a problem. First, you don't know the right way or the easy way. It tells you there is another easier method. I'm talking about problems. For example, when you don't get the money you want, it's not enough. It's a simple problem. This means the message says there is another method, another way, another route that you can reach more money. There are barriers, obstacles that can be overcome. There is another rule which is very important. Should remember that. What you do now, within 3 months or 2 months now, if you keep doing in the same manner, you are creating more problems. If you deal in one thing in 3 months in the same way, you will not reach. I'll say it again. If you have more than 3 months doing the same thing, you will get the same result. This means your problems will continue. But if you have more than 2 years doing the same thing, then there will be crisis or pandemic. So problems continue if you stay doing the same thing in 3 months. Crisis if you are staying for 2 years. Crisis are more problems, accumulation of problems. So if there is a world disaster, you should change the way you tackle these problems or disasters or catastrophes. The first rule is I should look for simple, easy manners or solutions. 2, it's very important to identify the values through which I will follow and overcome the problems. As an institution or organization, I should care about what value I'm going to give to the people. I should also, as an individual, what is the value I'm going to give to the community? Also, we have to focus on values. Values are very important. You have to know the value of what you are doing. You shouldn't think of routine work. You shouldn't be bored. Sometimes you lose your value. You shouldn't focus your value. You should focus on your values. Number 3, when there are problems, it says, watch that there are efforts are used not in the right place. Think. I'll tell you something else. We know exactly how we can win more, gain more, get more income, how we can get better results in relationships, and how we can reach better marketing for my company and get more targets. And I can create ideas. I can do it. There are lots of good ideas. People have lots of ideas. If we do these ideas, if we perform them, we will succeed. So the problem will tell you, don't use if. There is action. There are efforts that you are not using. You should think of ideas and transform them to a reality. I was sitting with somebody who is now about 73 years old, 74 years old. He has problems and pressures, and he tells me, I have a topic that I would like to do. When I do it, it will be a quantum leap. It will be an advancement for the youth and for everybody, for our life. I told him, but how long have you been thinking of that? He said, since I was 40 years old. I told him, good morning. 40 years thinking of this idea? And you were young when you were 40. But you are now 73 or 74, and you still have the same idea. Number 4, an important rule. Start counting about what is familiar. The problem is approaching. To tell you, don't use the pattern which is used by everybody. Do the unordinary. Go to a different road. Think of creativity, of development. It's very important. Al-Ihsan is excellence. Al-Ihsan is to do today better than yesterday. Ihsan in our religion means doing better today than yesterday. Ihsan is excellence. And it solves our problems. Number 5. The problem tells you that use emotional intelligence more. Intelligence, social intelligence and emotional intelligence is very important. People think that IQ is only mathematics or transactions. No, intelligence is also emotional and social intelligence. The best intelligence is how to deal with your people and how to deal with your feelings and emotions. I'll give you an example. How many of you was true? We make mistakes. How many of you to have a diet and to follow this diet and to say, I will follow that, I will do this, I will stop eating these fats and issues. Then all of a sudden, once he's hungry, when he feels hungry, these feelings will tell him, oh, I want to eat. Let's start tomorrow. Today it did not work. If you postpone the decision for your feelings, because of your feelings, this means you will continue to be the prisoner of your feelings and emotions. But the opposite is correct because of feelings. If you are unhappy, if you are troubled, and you have to rectify your feelings. If there's a problem, the best way is to be patient and to forget the problem. But the feelings will become bigger and bigger, and you can't, it's a burden. So you have to be patient. These are 2 examples that they happen. This means that our feelings guide me. My social, emotional intelligence should work. The decision should be from me. You have to write down. When you want to take a decision, have a plan. Write it down. Write what you want to say.
When you change your decision, you say, well, a second, I won't do, only I'll do what I have written. I won't do, only I have to write. I'll have to write. I'll have to look at what I am writing. What I have written, I have to follow a list of words, a list of methods. Maybe it won't. I have to take care about what I have written. I have to take care about, focus on, I have to be very aware that the problem, I'm facing a problem, for example, that maybe the problem somebody else will face it, then it will come to me. I'll have to face it. When I get it, that I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay the attention to the one who got this problem. Then I got it. Why? Why should I have to look at the around me? I should have to pay my attention to protect myself. I have to protect myself. When we were unhappy, only after we get the prophets or a messenger who get the appropriate methods, and we have to follow the legislation and instruction as well that we have to make or to do the same. The prophets came and provided the prophets came and provide instructions and legislations we have to follow, that we have to learn during 2 months or in 2 months. No. When we look at the messengers who are coming from outside, that we have to commit problems, or we have to face a problem, for example, then you have to look back. You have to take care of what happened before. The messages of problems, how it go. You have to get a plan for that. You have to write a plan in order to, when there are the circumstances, when the circumstances allow me to do it, then I'm not a leader. For example, I'm a leader, but you don't need to postpone. You don't need to postpone any action. We have to put out or to put up a plan in order to be my future action. Then, if you don't put up objectives, clear objectives, and go and perform to achieve it, then those objectives will be for somebody else to achieve it. You have to get a clear aims, a clear objects. Then, if you don't achieve them, if you don't carry out those achieves, then somebody else will do them. No, you have to take care of yourself. Yeah. And you are living for your family. If you don't put up a plan, if you don't plan for your future, and if you don't put up some objective, that means you will lose everything. Now, the messages of problems, you should recognize those messages. You should recognize, identify, and the messages of a crisis. If you don't pay attention to the messages of a crisis, then, second, you don't pay attention for the messages. Then, this is very important information, very important point. Nothing happened in the future if the problems and the crisis had been already happened before. Everything, it has been repeated. I think if the crisis, the earthquakes, tornadoes happened, no, all the crises on the earth happened before. We have to believe in it. We have to believe in that. The earthquakes, the volcanoes, the natural disaster, happened before. We have to plan how to deal with those crises, how to deal with those problems. So this is this is an example. The internet, for example, maybe we have discovered the internet discovered before many years, but only 5 years we get involved and effectively to get involved to. And when I did many lectures, Ahmed Omara, and we did many lectures, and I wrote a curriculums and courses for in the fifth. Now, I think we have done many lectures, many courses. If I die, then any lecture that I'm going to do it, that I have to get a video for each film, or I have to make a video for my lectures for myself in order to get a sustainable performance in the future after my death, for example. About the vital energy, I did a course about vital energy, and what happened then, it will be a very big destructive if I didn't record the course, then it will be a problem. But I have already recorded the course, and the corona and during the pandemic, I did the course by virtual program. And after the big participants used to watch the virtual program that I have already recorded. And we should predict the future. We should prepare ourselves for the future. There is a plan. And we have to put up a plan. We have to put up a plan in order to for the future now. Yeah. Then I didn't learn. No, I should learn from the past. I should have an experience from the past. I have to get involved to the people who are getting more experience. So I should believe in the study. And actually we are going to have two years of a study.
أكتر من سنتين، وإلا هتنهال عليك الدنيا غصب عنك. يا تترفد من السوق زي ما حصل لنوكيا وزي ما حصل لكودك والشركات الكبيرة، يا إما هتبقى في مشاكل ومعاناة رهيبة جدا. لا.
Otherwise, you will stay in problems. You should develop. You should understand that the law is like education. During 2 or 3 years, if you do not develop, you will have problems in year 4 and 5. And from 6 to 7 years, the problems will exacerbate. Always people talk about the 7 years of development. So the age is 7 years. Either they will turn to a positive phase, or they will change to death, and you will decide who will not develop during the 7 years. And the startups years, after 7 years, you will see where they are. More than 80% disappear, and the one who succeed less than 10%. And because they did not look for and look at and consider the 7-year law, because they did not develop. If you do not develop, if you do not, for example, look for metaverse or other ways of development, you will fail and retreat. Anything happens and you look for something in you and do not depend on metaverse, you will be at the end of the list. Now, how can I protect myself? We talk about 2 points. How can I protect myself from falling in catastrophes or crisis? And number 2, when I fall in the crisis, how can I do, or what can I do to protect myself really? Or who works in an insurance company, for example, I tell them to change the name of the company from insurance into compensation company. If I insure a car, nothing wrong happens to it. If I get money, it will be compensation. So it should be called compensation, not insurance. Insurance means nothing wrong will happen to you during the crisis, international or personal crisis. This is number 1. Number 2, you should realize that there is a law for development granted by God, happens every day, but we do not realize the problem and the crisis well. What does that mean? Is it useful to have a baby girl that, say, we have got birth? Aren't there regulations? Aren't there marriage and pregnancy and so on? It is impossible that the crisis will be born before the pregnancy. The crisis cannot develop before the symptoms. So God gives us symptoms and signals prior to the crisis. Things happen internationally and at the level of the family, and you should have sensors to read the signals early. If I develop these things and know that these are in the phase of pregnancy, then the phase of the birth, and at the beginning of the corona pandemic, when they discovered the virus, this is the birth phase, and started to develop and boom and became adolescent and became young and became very strong. And this is the top of the pandemic, and then go back as an old virus and then diminish. Now we are in the period of old virus. If you have the sensor to realize the signs before the pregnancy and the birth, the effect will be less. Number 2, which is very important, if your work in life depends on profit, Allah puts us the canon of protection and insurance. What benefits people remains in the ground or in the land. This is the law of staying, is the law of beneficiary. If you are beneficial, you will stay. You saw what happens in Zoom. To benefit how they made people use it, and Zoom during the pandemic developed a lot during the pandemic because they focused on the benefit of people. So if you focus on the benefit of people according to the tools, you will guarantee that nothing will impede you. Number 3, which is very important also, when you are aware that our God, nothing happens really unless I have a psychological faith. Nothing affects us unless Allah is prescribed us. What is written for you. The circumstance is that is coming to develop you, not to destroy you. If you are aware of this, if you develop early, you will protect yourself. So any circumstance or any condition will protect you. If you develop, I protect myself, that the circumstances will develop me and they protect me. So the negative circumstance hits and affects the one who does not have faith and protect itself. The last point, to protect yourself against any other, don't put all the eggs in one basket. You should diversify your income resources and make sure that your income should be, at least you should have 4 to 5 resources so that you will guarantee no circumstance will impede and affect you. Before any circumstance, what should you do? Number one, the first step is to avoid blame. Try to be away or avoid blaming anybody. If you blame anybody, you will exacerbate the negative senses. Number two, write everything that you do not need, everything that you are scared of. Write everything that you are worried about to happen. On the right, write everything that is negative and you are worried about. Number two, you should write what happens, what might happen will make you happy, or what has happened would have been better. So when this mix happens, the human being loses the compass. You should ask somebody, where would you like to go? If you do not know, where are you going? From this, you will focus where to go by the negative side. So, you write what you do not need, you write what you needed also. This is a very important point. Another phase is, I should accept any circumstance. Do you know the theory of arrow? To launch the arrow quickly, it should pull it back more. The more you pull the arrow back, the stronger it goes ahead. Keep in mind your arrow theory. So if you go back, you block your courage and your abilities to launch. For example, you can say, this is bigger than me, I cannot do that. This is a dangerous base and a dangerous rule. I used to say, if I have a big problem which cannot be solved, Allah says in the Holy Quran, Allah cannot ask anybody to do anything more than its ability. When I got faith that I can do this problem, I got rid of it quickly and I managed to overcome. All the solutions are there. You cannot see the solutions until they are still. You should believe that you are able to solve these problems and get away from them. Then second point, do not look for solutions that were used by previous people. All the traditional ways and all the things used by people, this crisis came to destroy this way. Sit with yourself. Certainly there are new ways I did not try before. The second point, there are skills. I have skills. You should try to look for the ideas that you overlooked before. Try to use the ideas you used in the past, but you did not apply. you will be astonished that this is the biggest idea that the Satan pulled you away, because the Satan make the belongings and the obedience scared about them. So when the crisis happens, the distance of the scare and the frighten will be minimized. You will find yourself able to do that. The last point, don't look back at all. Naturally, during the crisis, there are losses. Pay attention, please. This is one of the best life rules. Allah gave us ability to change the good into the bloom into gloom and the gloom into bloom. What I lost, I may say that I lost an amount. I lost a property. I lost stock shares. So you entered into the energy of loss. Maybe you say nobody can learn freely. I spent amount to learn. I spent something and time, health, and effort to learn. Learning is for the God's sake. So this expenditure is for your sake, and I'm sure that I will get back doubled. If you feel that what you spent for the God's sake, for the education, you will be aware that people who spend money for the sake of Allah, like the seed of wheat that produces 700 weeds. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. We will take 5 questions quickly, please, if you don't mind. You will get the mic quickly. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for this presentation and the wise things that you gave us. Dr. Ahmed, in the West, they are interested in the cognitive therapy and the psychological analysis school started to be less important. And it was a school since the 60s created by Dr. Bacon. And in short, he changed the ideas and the thoughts to deal with the life crisis and frustrations. What do you think about this school in the West? Thank you for the question. Cognitive behavior therapy is an old school, and it was developed in the 60s and 70s, and everything related to our behaviors, related from or based on our ideas. The more the ideas develop and the more develops, we have professional development also, and it is also emanated from the mindsets and the ideas. We always confirm that the Western culture, they were deceived by material things in certain part of the time. They thought that they owned everything until they realized that this thing has another thing inside which controls it. So they started to focus on the incentives and the ideas. Before pandemic, corona pandemic, I was in a conference in UAE 2 months before the pandemic. There was a scientist and expert. His name is Robert Frederick. I did not imagine that I will meet him in person. He's a good man. The one who created the cognitive mind. These 2 points he said are very important. The first one is that he studied how we can make a collective mind to share every people in it. He said that the most things that people the words of Amin, which is used in Christianity and Islam. But the strongest word is the word Amin. It has a strong vibration and effect on human being. And as it is said by all people, so they have a collective mind. The second point is that we in the West searched and started to the idea, and now we move to the spirit. Also, the atheist people, they have spiritual atheists. They have found something spiritual before or beyond the thing that controls life. So the more human developed, he will go back to the internal. To quote the ayah or the verse, Allah will not change anything in a nation unless they change themselves. I would like to thank you from my heartfelt for this presentation. I discovered my message in the life is in the field of inventions to benefit humanity. We should diversify our resources. The problem is that if I would like to look for different resources, I will not have time for my invention and to produce new products. This is a good question, really. We will finish this by this question. I'm sorry for that. First of all, who diversifies his income? Income is the one who makes the inventor knows to invent without worrying about the income. All the big companies will not start with invention and spend money unless they have secured an income resource or a resource income. The one who would like to invent, he should expert. He will spend time and effort. If I am in dilemma, if I leave my time without a resource, it will stop. So I should work to invent. So you are the first person to put a plan to diversify my income resources and take courses in this regard online. There are a lot of ideas. You can track the number 1 and 2. When you own your own time, with the passive income without effort, you will have time to spend and create and invent. And this invention will be a big source income or an income source. Take my advice, and these inventions will take time. So the first step to secure this now is to focus on the source of income, because you will have time and the inventor will focus on the things that have not achieved. Thank you so much for your listening and attendance. May Allah make your life happy and good for you.